Good morning, all. So, in the last class, we have gone through the authentication. So, message authentication we can handle by using three different functions. First one is by using the message encryption itself, or else we can go for MAC code, or else we can go for hash functions. Okay, so the mainly difference between MAC and hash is MAC uses one key, just like encryption. So MAC uses a key, but when you go for hash functions will not use any key, right? But if you go for the hash functions will be depending upon the calculations, mathematical calculations, and MAC will use the key, okay, based upon the encryption algorithm, right? And now when you go for the MAC and hash, okay, we are now going ahead with the keyed hash. That means what? We are combining hash and MAC, and together we are producing a new type of code. Okay, so that include, because the hash can be attacked by the birthday attacks, okay, birthday paradox, where the probability is more, right, to identify what is the hash value, from that one what is the message content. So in that case we need to go for what, a better algorithms where we can provide the code such way that it cannot be identified. Okay, the message cannot be identified and better message integrity can be provided. So for this we have what, keyed hash functions as MAC, that is called HMAC. Okay, hash plus MAC is HMAC. Okay, so that we are going for what, hash function we apply with what key, so that we are going to get the HMAC code, right? So we can the algorithm is what, HMAC algorithm. Okay, so this is specified as Internet Standards RFC 2104, right? So this has been identified as a standardized algorithm for providing the hash values. So it uses a hash function. How it uses the hash function is HMAC, the code can be generated by taking k plus. Why we are writing plus means we are adding some additional bits, okay, XORed with OPAD, so that is output padding, right? And so that is concatenated with already calculated hash, that is hash of k plus XORed with IPAD, that is input padding, right? So we are going to use some input padding and output padding values. So those two are XORed with k and performing the hash, and this hash, first we are going to apply the hash on k plus XOR with IPAD along with the message. Okay, so that one will be concatenated with k plus XOR with the output pad, and that resultant will be applying with the hash function. So here the key we are using, right? So that's why hash with the key, that is called keyed hash, is generating HMAC. So how it is being generated? So now look at it, the diagram. So here what we are doing, input pad, that is IPAD, we are going to add with the key. So we are supplying the key. Okay, so that key we are going to perform the XOR operation, and that we are going to generate B bits. So what B bits? That is nothing but the block size. So the input message will be divided into number of blocks, and this block size, and this input pad will be also of B bits, and to make the key as the B bit value, so we are going to add some zeros. Okay, so that is what, key padded with zeros will be said to be called key plus. So that key plus and input pad of B bits both will be XORed, and B bits will be generated. So this will be taken as the B bit value and the one block. Okay, so that block will be concatenated with the message blocks. So this y0, y1 and so on, these are representing nothing but the message blocks. So the message will be divided into number of blocks. Okay, each block will be of B bits, and this input pad is of B bits, k plus will be of B bits, these two will be XORed and generating one B bit output. So this completely, the concatenated message with this output value will be applied to the hash function. Okay, we have seen the hash functions. So one is what a SHA algorithm, so I can apply SHA algorithm or MD5 algorithm. So number of different hash values are hash functions are there, so I can apply a hash function with some input vector, initialization vector, and generating the hash value. So this hash value will be again padded to generate again the B bits. So these B bits will be concatenated with the B bits of how, that is k, again this key will be padded with O pad, output padding. So input padding one value will supply, output pad will be supplying one more value, and these two will be concatenated and generating B bits. So thus we are calling it as SO. SO is output, okay, SI is input. So here these B bits and these B bits will be concatenated and applied to again hash function, and this hash function will be generating some hash code. So this hash code is said to be HMAC code, hash MAC. Okay, so this is how this HMAC will be working, right? So very simple. What we are doing, input padding with k plus will be XORed, concatenated with the message, applied to hash, generated bits will be again converted into B bits by adding some additional zeros, and here output pad and key plus XOR B bits will be generated. These two will be concatenated, again applied to hash and generating the hash mark. Okay, so that is what the hash mark. And coming to this hash algorithm, we can apply any of the hash algorithms, like SHA algorithm is one of the hash algorithm we can use, right? So this is like how to generate the HMAC. So what is the security of this HMAC? So HMAC root security of HMAC related to that underlying hash algorithm. But what kind of attacks are possible on HMAC are brute force attack on the key. Okay, so if you are using the smaller key, so you'll be having more chances of identifying. If you are using the larger key, so you'll be having more security. Okay, birthday attacks are also possible, but here we are using what, along with the hash we are using the MAC. Okay, that means what, nothing but the key we are using, right? So that's why it will be what, not that much vulnerable to birthday attack. Okay, and we have to use the hash function based upon the speed and the security. So if you want more security, you need to go for higher, bigger key size, and the SHA functions like SHA-1 is there, SHA-512 is there, SHA-256 is there. So different versions of the SHA algorithm is there. So whichever you feel as what better algorithm, like MD5 is algorithm is there, MD7 is algorithm is there. So these are all generating the hash functions. So among whichever is having the higher good speed and more security, so that we can apply. Okay. Now coming to the last one, so that is what CMAC. Okay, that is ciphered based MAC. Okay, so previously we have seen already, I told you about DA. Okay, so that is data authentication algorithm. Okay, that is using CBC, cipher block chaining of MAC. Okay, where we are going to chain the cipher block so that the last one is generating the MAC code. Okay, and here we can also use two keys and padding, and that we are going to call it as cipher based message authentication, CMAC. Okay, so where here the algorithm uses a single key, and here we can improve. Why? Because the DA is not efficient, because the message size is having limitations. So to overcome this problem, we are going for two keys and padding, and that is generating the cipher based message authentication code, that is called CMAC. Okay, so here how the CMAC is going to work, you can see. Okay, so the message encrypted, alright, So that encrypted output is being given as what input. So this is what how the cipher block chaining will be performed, right? And the last one is what we are going to generate here. When you observe at the last, we are applying key 1. Clear? So message length is larger than the multiple blocks. When we have the message length is larger than, we need to pad something, right? M1, M2, Mn, and we are going to divide them into blocks, okay? And the blocks we are going to encrypt, okay, individually, and that cipher block is generated, and that is given as input to the next block. And at the end, the last part, okay, so we are going to encrypt. Before encryption, we are XORing the previous cipher blocks with the message block and the key 1. So this is additional key 1. Clear? Additional key 1 we are going to use and encrypt the message, and we are generating the MAC code. Alright, and if we are having the message block is less than, then we need to add additional zeros. Okay, so I can go for what? Encrypt, then encrypt. This cipher block is given as input, and then we are going for what? The cipher block is given as a feedback to the next blocks and proceeding. And finally, we are going to XOR with message, the previous cipher block, and key 2. Okay, and again encrypt, and then generating the output. So this is called what? Cipher based message authentication. So we are doing simply what? We are using 2 keys. Here, why I am representing with K1 and K2 is, K1 we are using when you go for what? All the blocks of same size. Okay, but if you are going for the blocks with the lesser size, we are going for what? Additional padding. Okay, so this padding we are adding, and then we are XORing with the right, and then we are generating output. So this output is taken as the message authentication code, and this is said to be cipher based message authentication code. So this is what we have seen, right? In the last class we have seen the SHA. You don't have this Whirlpool algorithm. Okay, we have seen HMAC and CMAC, right? So this is about the message authentication codes. Okay, other than these, we have the digital signature. One more concept is the digital signature. So message authentication, what it is providing? It is providing the integrity of the message, but still some lacking. That is, authentication of the content is provided, but still we require the authentication of the sender also. Okay, along with the message. That means you require authorize the trust. The trust is needed. Okay, so for that we have this digital signatures to provide the verification of the author, that is who is the sender, the date and time, okay, authentication of the message, okay, and also it can be verified by the third parties if you have any disputes. So for this, digital signatures are introduced. So do understand, when you go for message authentication, so message authentication, MAC code or hash code, those can provide the integrity of the message, right? But the sender authentication, we are going to add additional encryption, right? Private key, with the private key of the sender, if I am encrypting the hashed message, that is message with the hash code or message with the MAC code, so that will be encrypted again with the private key of the sender to provide the authentication of the sender. Okay, so here the digital signatures are doing that only. So digital signature, what it is doing, it is going to verify the author, authenticate the message content, and if any disputes are there, that has to be rectified. So for that we are going for the digital signatures. So these digital signatures, what are the properties are needed? Okay, so this digital signature must be depend on the message, on the message sign, on which message you are going to perform this digital signature. It should be depend upon the message. Okay, must use uniform information unique to the sender, right? So that means only the sender must know some information right? That is like what private key of the sender it has to use or whatever it may be. So to avoid the forgery, that somebody else cannot act as the sender and send, okay? And forgery and denial, white denial, that is sender also should not deny that I haven't sent the message, okay? So in such a way that the information which is known to the sender, unique to the sender, that must be used, okay, to provide the digital signature. Must be relatively easy to produce, okay? It should be easy to construct, okay? It is easy to recognize and verify, okay? Computationally infeasible to forge, okay? In such a way that the digital signatures must be uh, identified, right? So here for digital signatures we can have different ways: direct digital signature, arbitrary digital signatures, or authentication protocols. So we will be using different ways. So if I go for the direct digital signature, so direct digital signature means what? So that will include only the sender and the receiver, okay? Only the sender and receiver, and receiver is assumed to have the sender's public key, okay? So how we are going to provide the digital signature, direct digital signature? Sender is going to encrypt the message by using its private key, okay? That means only the sender is knowing the private key, the receiver is knowing the public key of the sender, and receiver can verify. If he can decrypt with the public key of the sender, then that message is being what? The authenticated message, in such a way that that is direct digital signature. That is nothing but what we have discussed in the last class, okay? Where the sender is encrypting the message with the private key, okay? And the receiver will decrypt the message with sender's public key. So when it is doing, it can able to decrypt the message with the public key of the sender. That means only the authorized sender has sent it, so it can be understood indirectly. But the security is depending upon what? How much secure the private key is. Clear, right? Now coming to the arbitrator. Arbitrator means what? It includes some other party, a third party arbiter, okay? So direct means only sender and receiver will be included, but arbitrator means we have the third party who is going to validate, right? Validate any signed message by the arbiter. Clear? So involves use of arbiter, some other party A, okay, validates any signed message, then dated and sent to the recipient. So this arbiter, what it is doing? It is going to validate whether this is sent by the sender or not. So that is the trusted third party is going to verify it, and it is mentioning the date uh, and time and sent to the recipient, okay? So that it is what, like this is only the sender has been sent, so it is authenticating to the receiver, okay? It is coming from the authorized sender only, okay? It can be implemented with the either private key or public key algorithms, okay? So that is, if it is a private key, if I am using for providing this arbitrated digital signature, so the message must be encrypted with a single key, okay? So and coming to the public key algorithm is private and public keys both will be available, okay? So and the third party is going to verify whether it is encrypted with the private key of the sender or not, okay? So in this arbitrated digital signature, it may or may not see the message. That means the arbiter, if I am saying what, the arbiter can view the message, so the trusted third party is able to view the message, then it can be it is what, it may read the message, okay? But if the arbiter is not allowed to view the message, then we can go for what? Public key algorithm, okay? If it is private key algorithm, arbiter must also have the secret key. Clear? Must also have the secret key. If it has the secret key, means it can view the message content, right? So in that way this arbitrated digital signature can work. And coming to authentication protocols, okay? So here authentication protocols will be exchanging the session keys, okay, by using some third party, okay? So Here the previous one arbitrated means one trusted party is going to verify, but here coming to authentication protocol, some protocols are defined to share the secret key. Okay, so here it is going to address some key issues, that is what confidentiality and timeliness. So confidentiality means to protect the session keys, and timeliness to prevent the replay attacks. But what is a replay attack? Replay attack means a message can be copied and resent later. So what happens if I am going for the replay attack? Okay, the same message content is replayed. Like for example, you might have a bank account transfer, for example. Okay, so a bank account transfer, so from there the money is deducted from one account and will be deposited into another account, right? That means one time it is performing, so one time deduction is been done. But if it is going for the replay means what? Same is transfer, again it is happening means two times the deduction will happen. Okay, two times the other party is benefited. So if it is happening, the loss will be there for the person who has been deducted. Okay, so if I am going for this replay attack, so replay attack, what it is doing, simply the message is being copied and later it is resent. Okay, so there are different types of replay attacks. Simple replay, that is what same message can be tracked. The repetition, that can be logged. Okay, that means how many times it is been performed, that is logged. If it is logged means we can detect. Okay, repetition that cannot be detected means even the repetition is done and that cannot be identified. Okay, so this is what is dangerous. Okay, backward replay without modification. So some replay attacks can include the modification, like if account number is changed in the transmission, so then that means what, a very big fraud will happen. Okay, so to avoid these replay attacks, so what type of countermeasures are included are, so use of sequence numbers. Okay, for each message use the sequence numbers, timestamps. Okay, and challenge and response. Recently we are seeing these challenge and responses so many times. Okay, when you are doing any transactions, challenge and response, you will be given with a captcha and you need to give some response, or else you are given with some task and you need to perform. Okay, so all these things, okay, these are what, to avoid the replay attacks. Okay, and here authentication protocols may be implemented by using the symmetric encryption or asymmetric encryption. Symmetric encryption with what? A single key. Okay, asymmetric encryption with what? Two keys. Okay, so when you go for symmetric encryption, so we'll be using a trusted third party, that is said to be what? Key distribution center, and it is going to distribute the secret key. Okay, so how it will be done? So first, each party shares their own master key with the KDC. Okay, KDC is nothing but key distribution center. So one key distribution center will be there. They are going to share their master key. Okay, this master key is used to share the session key. Session key is for what? Encrypting the further messages between the sender and receiver. Okay, so KDC generates the session key. It is going to generate the session key and distributes between the sender and the receiver. Okay, so master key is used to distribute to them. So when it is distributing, that key must be encrypted, so that encryption will be done by using this master key. Okay, so one example is Needham-Scotter protocol. So this is going to use the third party KDC. Okay, so protocol, and to establish a session between A and B, it is going to mediate and it is going to generate the secret key and distribute between A and B. How it will be done? Okay, so to perform this, first A and B are what? Two parties, so they will be sharing their master keys. Okay, and A is going to send to KDC that I want to communicate with B. Okay, so it is going to give this IDA. IDA is identity of A and identity of B. It is, so that means I am A, I want to transmit to B. Okay, with some nonce. Okay, so these nonce are used to avoid the replay attacks. Okay, right? So with some nonce, it is going to send a message, and this KDC is going to generate the secret key, right? And that secret key will be encrypted. Okay, so with what? With KB. KB is nothing but the master key shared between the KDC and B, right? So KB, so what it is doing, it is encrypting the secret key along with the identity of A. So that means when you are sharing with A, okay, it is informing to B, when you are sharing with A, use this session key. So that is what this message. So this will be concatenated with some nonce, whatever the nonce is sent by A, and IDB, that is concatenated with the secret key, and this completely will be encrypted with the master key that is shared between KDC and A. So this message, once it is received by A, so what it is doing, it will decrypt. So when it is decrypting, it will receive this KS, that is the session key, and it will also have this particular message. So this message it will be sending to B. Okay, this message, as it is this part, is sending to B. So when it is sending to B, B is going to retrieve this session key along with this ID A. That means A's identity and the session key is retrieved by B. Then B is going to share some nonce, okay, to check. Okay, to check this the session key. With this session key, it is going to encrypt and send it. And with A, when it is sent to A is going to give in response, that again it will be encrypting and it is going to give the response. So in this way, the further communication will happen with the secret key, right? So this is said to be Needham-Scodel protocol. So where it is including the key distribution center. So what it is doing, key distribution center is generating one secret key, that is said to be session key, that can be used further by the sender and the receiver to for the communication, right? But how it will be done? First, along with KDC, A and B, that is the sender and receiver, must share their master keys. Okay, so that master keys are nothing but KA and KB. So by using those, they are going to perform the further encryption, okay, to share this secret key, right? Then the session key is used for encrypting the further messages. So this is called Needham-Scodel protocol, and this is nothing but, so how whatever I have explained, that is given here, is to secretly distribute a new session key for the communication between A and B. Okay, but it is vulnerable to a replay attack if an old session key is compromised. Okay, if old session key is compromised, so whatever the previous keys if I am using, so to say, if it is compromised, that means if it is revealed, then it can be dangerous. But the modifications we can add by using additional timestamps or extra nonce we can use, and that is provided by this Denin algorithm, so that I will show you later. Okay, and this is about what, using the encryptions, like using symmetric encryption. Okay, if I am going for public key encryption, using the public key encryption, so we can also perform the authentication. So how this public key encryption can be used is, we can have a range of approaches based upon the use of public key encryption, and we need to ensure the correct public keys for the parties. Okay, and we also use this authentication server. So there will be one central authentication server that is going to provide. Okay, so this algorithm is said to be Denning-AES protocol, authentication server protocol. So Denning-AES, how it will be means, so first authentication, it is not going to use the master keys. Okay, it is going to use the public keys, right? So with the AES, what it is going to do, AES means authentication server, it is going to share the ID A and ID B. That means I am A, I want to communicate with B, correct? So that message it will be transmitting to authentication server. So what authentication server is going to do, it is going to encrypt with its private key. Okay, authentication's private key, and the public key will be available with A and B. Okay, so with its private key, what it is doing, ID of A and public key of A will also be added, and some timestamp will be added, and that will be encrypted. And this is concatenated with this is message for A, okay, and this is the message for B, okay. So that is the public key of A and public key of B. So both will be encrypted with the private key of authentication. That is, it is signing on this. So your public key, A's public key is signed, B's public key is signed, okay. Then A and B will exchange this particular message, okay. So what A is doing, it is sending the whatever message it is received from the authentication server along with what, B's public key, okay, B's public key. So this message I have received, so your public key is this, so I am using your public key and the secret key, right? Secret key generated by this authentication server and given to A, so that will be encrypted with the public key of B and it will be transmitted, okay. So then what happens, then further the session transmission will be done by using this case, okay. So here the timestamps, why it is using timestamps, to avoid the replay attacks, okay. So this is said to be Denning AES protocol, okay. So this is about Denning AES protocol, okay. Now coming to this one-way authentication, okay, where it is required when only either the sender or the receiver authentication, so both the parties authentication is not needed, then we can prefer this one-way authentication. They have the header in clear, so it can be delivered by email system, okay. We want contents of body protected and sender authenticated only when the sender authentication is needed, and that is what in the, for example, emails we go for what, one-way authentication, okay. So this is, in this also one-way authentication, we need not to go for what, the receiver's authentication, okay. Only one way we are going to perform the authentication. So here in this one you can use this KDC, okay, that is again key distribution center. So here we are going to perform the authentication of the sender itself, so we are not going to bother about the receiver's authentication. So A to KDC, what it is doing, it is sending the ID of A, ID of B and nonce, okay. KDC to A, what it is doing, it is encrypting with the master key, so KS, ID of B, and the same type of message, okay, as how we have seen in this, yes, here. So how we have seen, but here further B and A also verified, so this will be avoided in one-way authentication, clear. One-way authentication further we don't require to perform, clear. So that is the only main difference, these steps are same, okay. And here also public key approach also one-way authentication, so we can send directly, okay. With B's public key we are encrypting the secret key and transmitting, clear. So what happens here, so simply with the B's public key we are transmitting means A is trusting B and transmitting, okay. But if I want to provide the digital signature, it has to encrypt with what, private key of A also, okay. If I am encrypting with the private key of A, so it is signing on that A is the authorized person, okay. So now the last one in the digital signatures is digital signature standards. So this is what a standardized algorithm for digital signatures, okay. So how it is going to work, I am directly going with this digital signature algorithm. So it is going to create 320-bit signature, okay, with 512 to 1024-bit security, smaller and faster than RSA, okay. We'll compare RSA and DSA, how they are going to differ, okay. And then digital signatures, it is a digital signature scheme only, but it is not equal to use for the encryption and decryption. RSA can be used for the encryption and decryption, okay, but digital signature algorithm can be used only for the digital signature, okay. So how it is going to apply, so now you can see here the difference between RSA and DSS. So RSA algorithm, how to perform this district signature, what it is doing, the message we are hashing and the resultant will be encrypted with the private key of A. So that is generating the digital signature. Okay, so that is concatenated and transmitted. So this part is said to be what, the signature. Okay, that signature will be verified by decrypting with the public key of A, and this message is hashed and the generated will be compiled. So this is how the RSA approach is going to work, but DSS is going to work in a different way. Okay, so what it is doing, it is going to generate the hash value of the message, and by using a key it is going to perform the signature function. Okay, signature function, and this signature function is using the public key, private key of A, okay, and this private public key of G, right, signing, and this signed message will be concatenated with a message and it is transmitting. Okay, now here when it is performing the signing, it is going to generate two parts, S and R. So these S and R with the hashed message we are applying with the verification, and then the verification will be done by comparing this received S and R and generated S and R. Okay, so how to generate and receive? So for this we are going to use the globally shared public values P, Q and G. Okay, here as like in RSA algorithm PQ we are using, here we are using P, Q and G, three values we are going to use, and choose this Q as a 160 bit value. Okay, and P should be or equals to 2 power L, where L is 512 to 1024 bits, multiples of 64. Okay, and Q is a prime factor of P minus 1. So in that way P, Q should be chosen, and G value should be such that H power P minus 1 divided by Q. Okay, P minus 1 divided by Q, H power P minus 1 divided by Q, where H should be less than, H also should be chosen. Okay, H should be less than P minus 1, and H power P minus 1 divided by Q mod P should be greater than 1, in such a way that H must be chosen and G value has to be calculated. Okay, so and also we need to choose X is less than Q, okay, and Y must be computed G power X mod Q. So this will be what, X the private value it is going to calculate, and Y we are going to compute. Okay, so G power X mod P, so G value we are choosing. Okay, so G power X here we are chosen, so G power X mod P. So this Y value will be shared, right, and then how the sign will be generated is generates a random signature K such that K should be less than Q. Okay, K must be a random number. Okay, how to generate the K should be a random number destroyed after, this is what single time used. Okay, so that will be destroyed after the use, right? Then computes the signature pair, and I told you what, two values will be generated, R and S. How? G power K mod P, okay, and mod Q. So that is generating R, and S will be generated by applying K inverse. Okay, this is what K inverse with H of M, right? H of M is what, hash value, right, plus X into R. So K inverse multiplied by H of M plus X into R. So that value will be in the mod Q range. So R and S both should be in the mod Q range, those will be generated. So that R and S will be shared along with the message. Okay, and once it is received, R and S along with the message, how it will be verified? So we are going to verify, we are going to generate V. Okay, and that V and R should be equal. If V and R is equal, then it is what, the signature is verified. Okay, but to generate V, we are generating some intermediate values W, U1, U2. Okay, so W is S inverse mod Q. Okay, U1 equals to H of M into mod Q into W mod Q, and U2 R into W mod Q, right? So these W, U1 and U2 to use, and we are going to generate V. So G power, G is what the public value, Y is the public value, so G power U1 and Y power U2 mod P mod Q. So finally the value will be in the range of mod Q. Okay, so this generated V and the received R should be equal. Okay, this received S we are using for what? Generating the W. Okay, so in such a way that V and R will be verified, they will be compared. So if both are same, it will be accepted, otherwise it will be rejected. So this is how this calculation will be somewhat complicated to understand, but it is what, as we are using the hash and mod values, these calculations. So this is for what, to provide the better digital signatures comparatively RSA. Okay, so this is how the digital signature algorithm is going to work. Right, so this is about digital signatures. Okay, thank you. In the next class we will discuss about key distributions.